Davante Adams is on pace for 112 catches, 1,666 yards, and 17 touchdowns in 17 games. I think this season adds to Davante Adams' greatness.
I feel like he's the last of a dying breed.
Look at the release.
There's your separation.
Great route.
Stutter and go. Gets by clean.
That is unbelievable.
Maybe the greatest catch I've ever seen.
You and I were talking a little bit before we started recording. You really feel like Davante Adams is having one of his best years.
Statistically, and I know I said earlier in the year that, or earlier in the show, that obviously counting stats are not the best way to evaluate how good a wide receiver is playing.
Correct.
That said, our guy Rory in the Discord pointed out that Davante Adams is on pace for 112 catches, 1,666 yards, and 17 touchdowns in 17 games.
17 touchdowns. Damn.
Yeah, I think he's the best, the number one receiver in fantasy right now. Obviously some things have not gone, like the Raiders pretty much have like two dudes on offense. Like they get the ball to Josh Jacobs, they get the ball to Davante Adams, and that is it. We didn't expect that to be the case, right? Because Darren Waller and Hunter Renfrow have been hurt basically all season, but I just think his season is going a little bit under the radar, how dominant Davante Adams has been, because the Raiders are not that good. Davante Adams has been everything I think that folks would have hoped he's been, because obviously his reception perception shows he's always been, when you isolate him from quarterback play. And this is why I do this, right? Like, because any stupid argument that like, oh, Davante Adams is only good, or he's only this good because he's with Aaron Rodgers. Like, no, he's not. He's always open. He's number one or number two in each of the last 4 seasons in success rate versus man and press coverage. Like, he is a dominant separator and route runner. And that's the thing that a wide receiver can control. And what has he been doing? I mean, look at him in Las Vegas this year. He's been unbelievable as a route runner, especially like a downfield route runner too. That's one thing is different between his usage in Green Bay and Las Vegas is like, his air yards per target numbers are up.
I'll tell you what, over his last 5 games in particular, he has just gone absolutely next level, right? He's averaging over his last 5 games, he's averaging 133 receiving yards per game. If you just took that 5-game sample, okay, and stretched it out over 17 games, this dude's on pace for 139 receptions, 2,258 yards, and 24 touchdowns, okay? Like, that's how crazy dominant he has been. And doesn't it make a lot of sense too, Matt? Right? Because we're talking about a guy that really is going into a brand new situation for the very first time in his career, working with a brand new quarterback and a brand new offense. All of it's new. So, yeah, we should have expected a little bit of ramp-up time, even for a player as great as Davante Adams. And let me also make this point. There are a lot of examples where we've seen veteran wide receivers. I don't want to say he's older, but he is 29 years old. He's about to be 30 in like a few days, So we've seen players like this go to new situations and absolutely suck.
Right.
He is not doing that. He's still dominant. But to your point, I just think it's kind of gone under the radar because the first 6 or 7 games, it was just kind of like, it was a little bit more up and down, right? Like he had a game where he had a 3 reception game, a 1 reception game, a 2 reception game, right? Like he's been a little bit more up and down for the first half of the season. But boy, once he got familiar with that playbook, once he got familiar with his teammates, that chemistry started building. It's basically the Davante Adams we've been seeing, the dominant X-receiver that we have gotten used to. Over the last 5 games, this guy has been absolutely magical.
Yeah, and I think you could make the argument that, now that Hunter Renfrow and Darren Waller are on IR, like it's just the Davante Adams show. But these guys haven't really been integrated in the offense at any point. Like, point to the Hunter Renfrow game, point to the Darren Waller game, where these guys have been like big time factors this year. Davante Adams is a 32.8% target share on the year. Like, that's about as good as you could possibly imagine, and he's leading the NFL in touchdowns. I think folks would say that the Raiders and the Packers would both like want to annul the Davante Adams trade, send him back to Green Bay, like get the draft picks back to, the Raiders. The Raiders are on a 3-game win streak. Like I don't think they regret the Davante Adams trade. Like, everybody wanted to fire Josh McDaniels like 4 weeks ago or whatever, but it's his first year of the program. They definitely blew some games. I get that, but like, it's just crazy to me. Everybody's like, this Raiders would be better with the first round pick. They'd be better with the money, not giving that contract. It's like, what do you have money and draft picks for other than to like maybe get a legendary player like Davante Adams? Like, I think that imagine the Raiders without Davante Adams this year. Like they probably win a half a game. I don't even know. I mean, so I just think like
without Davante Adams, their number one receiver would be Mac Hollins. What? Oh my God. Could you imagine right now? Like, what would that look like? Jesus Christ. It'd be terrible.
By the way, remember we were just talking about the Ravens, who their current like number one outside receiver is the guy who couldn't make this roster in Demarcus Robinson. So keep that in mind while we're talking about these two teams back to back. Man, we've tried to rank like top 5 receivers on this show, and it's at different times it's like, oh man, is Adams slipping out of the top 5 because Tyreek Hill's having that year, Justin Jefferson's having this year, Diggs is having this year, and then obviously AJ Brown's having this type of year. No way, man. Adams is and Cooper Kupp, Cooper Kupp's obviously on IR now. Man, I think Adams is still the best, one of the 2 or 3 best receivers in football right now. And God, it's hard to say who like at the top 5 wide receivers are at this point because there's just so much talent at the top of that position. But Adams has proven this year that isolated from quarterback play, isolated from a Hall of Famer in Aaron Rodgers, put him just. Watch Davante Adams individually. You can't cover that guy. I mean, he's impossible to go against.
You talk about the air yards that Davante Adams is seeing in this offense in 2021 and 2020. Very consistent, 9.1 air yards per target. This year in 2022, 11.6 air yards per target. So, no, you're right. They are using him a little bit deeper. Last thing I'll say about Davante Adams, and we'll move on to some of these rookies here, but I don't know, man. Like, I feel like he's the last of a dying breed. Like, he is truly the last time we will see a dominant old school X receiver. These other guys that you want to put in the top 5, they work just differently than Davante, if that makes any sense. Like, I love Justin Jefferson, but again, part of what makes him so good is that, Kevin O'Connell has him moving around the offense a little bit and, playing slot, playing outside. He's just a different guy, man.
What's funny too, James, is that, and obviously, Justin Jefferson and Davante Adams pretty similar in terms of slot percentage, 22.7%, 22% for Davante Adams. But that was like a question about him coming to the Raiders was, you remember the reports like, oh, they're going to only use him outside. Like, and obviously Hunter Renfro's not been a part of the picture, but Hunter Renfro's he's only a slot receiver, whatever. But I think this season adds to Davante Adams' greatness because the Packers used to get him so many like little layup slot routes and stuff like that. And like you said, I think this year he has just been pure X, like pure that type of stuff. And by the way, I never had, based on the RP numbers, never had any questions that he could be that type of guy. But man, yeah, Adams is just, I think the fact that he's doing it in that way. And like AJ Brown is definitely like a big time X receiver, but yeah, Diggs like mostly, wins as an outside receiver, stuff like that. But yeah, I agree with you that you don't see a lot of guys doing what Davante Adams is doing this year, which is going out there and lining up as an X receiver and winning vertical routes over and over and over again with very, very few gimmies, man. And like, last thing too, just on his value, like not only is he just he's not even just putting up like little hollow numbers, like he's winning the games for the Raiders right now. Like that Denver game, walk-off touchdown, and 2 touchdowns in that game. That game against the Chargers, like he took that game over 177 yards, 2 touchdowns. Like, yeah, you can't really say enough good things about him. I think this has really been like, not that he needed it, shouldn't have needed it, but this is definitely like a legacy building season for Davante Adams.